We'll start in a moment with a prayer and an examine, and we're looking back over this last week, so days 8 to 14. Then I'll offer some reflections on my second week. We break into faith sharing groups as we did before. Really encouraged last week about people said that they appreciated having the time for these, so we'll carry on with that model. Then come back for a short period of whole group sharing, and then a closing silence and prayer before we go off and continue on the next 7 days of our journey. So if we kind of start with the examine, preparatory prayer and the examine. Dear God, may all our intentions and actions be directed purely to your service and praise. We thank you for being with us on our journey in this last week. We thank you for all the gifts and graces we have received this week, even when going may have become difficult and we have blisters in our feet from walking this journey. We take the time here to notice those graces and where you have been. We ask you to shine your light on our journey, to help us to see through your eyes things maybe we haven't noticed, to appreciate more deeply things that maybe we have noticed, and also to notice the temptations to draw away or resist, and to appreciate your presence and your continuing drawing us even in these times, maybe even especially in these times. So we look back over our week and we notice those highlights, those moments of grace during prayer, when we were aware of your presence, your influence, and your spirit. Of those moments in our lives where we acted from your prompting, from this place of grace. We also notice where it was tough, where there was resistance, temptation to turn away, maybe even a turning away. We ask your forgiveness for these moments. And we ask you to show us who you would have us be, to draw us in the next steps of our journey closer to the person you see and would have us become. As we begin to share with each other today, we ask for open, honest discussion and for each one to presuppose the good intentions of the other. We ask this in the name of Jesus. Amen. So, some reflections on my week this week and the journey. Again, I've pulled out some of the themes I originally in the proposal drew from the 40 days, so days 8 to 11, just from the revelations that have been shared with us. These were some of the things that I picked out. I want to pick up on that word impassable, sort of maybe in a moment, because for me that was previously when I first did this journey, that was a big word actually, and as I was reflecting on this reflection today, I noticed that even though it may not have been a big word in my prayer this week, it's still a big word in terms of what has been going on. So these were some of the themes in days 8 to 11. Again, you may recognise, looking at these, something of your own experience this week, or they may not be speaking to you at all. You may not find anything you can relate to here. I think, again, certainly as I'm reading them now, there are one or two things I go, yeah, okay, but a lot of them I'm going, that's not really what was speaking to me this week, this time making this journey. So again, some themes from day 12 about sin, this dark, mournful contemplation, day 13, and then God taking heed of all things little and small. And I think for me, where I started last week, where I left off last week, was this sense of it was just important to be there. It was about contemplating God and being in that space to contemplate God. And as I started the prayer this week, I noticed increasingly through the week that I began to feel very uncomfortable in the prayer. And I mean physically uncomfortable. My body was sore and achy and fidgety, and I didn't want to be there. In the morning prayer, it was okay, but in terms of recording the prayer, it was just like, talk about resistance and avoidance. There was a kind of, oh dear, I just want to go to bed. And so I found this week quite tough. And that there are a couple of things that I was reminded of from my previous prayer experiences. And one of them was a years ago when I was doing spiritual exercises and I was doing the third week. So third week, we were praying with the Passion of Jesus. And I noticed the same kind of fidgety discomfort, physical discomfort of being in prayer. And I remember the director at the time said to me that was actually quite common when people were praying with the Passion and stuff like that. It was quite common to feel it physically in your body in terms of what was going on emotionally. But this seemed to get more difficult as the week went on. And I think by Friday, I was not feeling very well. And on Saturday, so I had a temperature and it was like, oh, okay. So ordered the PCR test, which came back positive. So I've had COVID this week. I still have COVID this week. I'm isolating at the moment. And in terms of knowing that and looking back at the prayer, I'm being kind of gobsmacked, really, because although I was struggling, I gradually stopped praying with my recorded prayers in the morning. I know I was experiencing this resistance to record the prayers in the evening, partly because I was just so exhausted. I was falling asleep on the sofa. I would find that I would have this conversation with God to say, I just need to go to bed. I can't do this. I can't record this prayer today. I just don't have it in me. And kind of noticing the presence of God this week is more about being, as I'm reflecting on it, noticing the absence of things that are contrary to God. That's not to say I haven't felt God's presence, I have, but sometimes in these moments when it's been kind of the same conversation every night. I'm so tired, I don't feel well, I've got to go to bed. And kind of having this sense of, this is not a problem to God. If I don't record that prayer, God doesn't have a problem with that. Which for me has been quite interesting, which is where I wanted to come back to this word impassable. Because I looked that up the first time I made the journey, and I thought it meant it was something that was difficult to get round, but that's actually the word impassable spelt with an A here, something that's you can't get round it. And this word spelt with an I, when I looked up, it means incapable of suffering or hurt. And I do remember the first time I thought, well, they crucified him. I mean, come on. But I've come to understand it as something other than that, as a kind of, my interpretation, my understanding, my felt understanding of what this means, glorious and impassable, is that we can't really hurt God's feelings. This was my senses. I got to these points several times this week in the evening going, oh, I haven't got it in me to record this prayer. Is that in my background with it, there's a lot of the crucifix and the passion. God died for you. Can you not even do this? There's always this emotional blackmail element of it. Do you not even have the faith to do that? This little thing you can't do when he died for you. And I haven't felt that this week from God. I haven't felt that if I don't record this prayer, I'm hurting his feelings, or I've broken what I committed to do for Lent, for this course, or anything like that, because I'm there sitting, I have COVID, I have had valid reason not to record these. So this was kind of the storm going around, but all the while I was feeling the calm. There's a storm going around me, but my sense of it is being grounded in this calm. So I can see all this happening, but I'm not feeling deep down a sense of turmoil. I'm not feeling that. What I'm feeling is, this is okay. This is okay. And having got to the point where I get myself up the sofa to go to bed, I go and fill my water bottle, I go to the loo, and I suddenly realise, actually, I have got the energy to do this. I have got it in me to sit down and record this prayer. And so I've managed to do it every night. And I don't say that with a sense of pride. I say that with a sense of absolute astonishment and amazement, because the struggle that somehow I'm not good enough by not doing this wasn't really there. I didn't feel that I was hurting God's feelings if I didn't do it. So it's noticing God's presence in that. This is okay. It's okay if you do it. It's okay if you don't do it. Don't worry about it. Almost like all things will be well. And that's the first thing. Looking back, where was God in this? Where was God with me this week? That I noticed that this calm, with things swirling around me. And the other thing was in the absence of fear. I live on my own, and I can feel quite sorry for myself when I'm not well. And self-pity is not something I like or enjoy, particularly in myself. And previously, when I've been ill, I would be like, oh, there's no one here to help me or look after me, and it's just like, oh, get a grip, for goodness sake. But I didn't I was aware again that that was in this swirly cloud, but I was somehow detached from it. There was no fear here. It's like, I have food in the house. I'm managing. You know, I made flapjacks and put protein in them. So if I was hungry, that's what I had. So I've kind of muddled through without that. And again, I notice God's presence in that sense of well-being. And that sounds, I realize that sounds like really contrary to having COVID, but still, even within that, having that sense of well-being, in that this is okay. This is okay. Nothing else is required. There's no threat here. And actually, even as I say that, being grateful for the vaccinations, and this really fortunate situation that I'm in. In terms of where I might have been drawn away, so I can recognise all these places where I could have been drawn away that were all swirly, but here somehow God is the calm, where I'm sitting in the calm in this storm with all of this. But there was one place, I reckon I caught COVID because I went to London, not the weekend, gone the weekend before that. So 7 days afterwards, I started to get sick. It's like, I should not have made that trip to London. I went to see my best friend, who I haven't seen since Christmas 2019. She has a health condition that she can't travel. I have a health condition too, but I can better travel than she can. So I went to see her. And as I'm telling her I'm not well, I can feel that she's getting defensive, and saying, well, it was probably on the train. You know, I don't think it was when you were in the hotel, because I was in the hotel with you at some, you know, for some of it, and we were around. She said, I haven't caught it. And I could feel this was the moment, the real moment where I could feel resentment building, is that she's placating. And in that moment, at that point, I sense she's conscious that she's saying, I just don't want you to decide not to come and visit me again. And she said that, so she's aware. But I also became aware that because of her friendship, she takes responsibility for things that are not hers. So I'm also picking up, she's feeling some guilt and responsibility that I've got ill when I've come to see her. And I can feel this resentment building. But there was this, even as I felt it, my response to it was, this is not your fault. This is not your fault that I caught COVID. I may have got it coming to London on the travelling and etc., but you're not responsible for this. This is not your fault. And I felt I felt that come out as I felt it internally. And it was just, that in itself was a moment of grace, because that resentment just dissipated. Even before it could surface, it was just gone. And I could see my friend just go, and I see her relax too. And for me, that movement where, yeah, I could have got upset, angry, annoyed, said to my friend, I'm not coming to see you again. And certainly that temptation was there, but it wasn't about seeing her. I was really pleased to see her. That was really rich. You know, it may have been all the other stuff. And there was God in the middle of that, kind of saying, she's not responsible for you being ill. I know it. She's not responsible. I'm not responsible for me being ill. I just went abroad in that situation and got sick in the pandemic. So it's been a tough week for me. And even in that, I can see the absence of things that could have been so, could have caused me a lot of fear, a lot of anxiety, self-pity, a lot spiritual desolation. Really, that just hasn't happened. I felt safe in the calm, in the storm, and enough to notice in the moment, not retrospectively, but in the moment it was happening, to notice when I was being pulled out of that love, and actually being able to hear the response of God and experience the response of God at the time. You know, this is not her fault. This is not your fault, and to act on that. So that's been quite a humbling week for me, and I am going to stop now, I think, because that's me talked for quite a bit. I'm looking forward to this next week. I'm not going to go back through the prayers I haven't prayed with in the morning. I'm just going to start again from tomorrow, continue to record them and pray with them tomorrow, because I'm feeling much better, even though I've still got to isolate. But at the moment I'm doing this from my sofa. At the moment, if it can't be done from the sofa, it's not getting done. But that's about me looking after myself and prioritizing what I can do and what needs to be done. So we're shortly going to go into faith sharing groups. And again, these are groups of no more than 4. You'll have, let me just have a look at how we're doing for time, because I haven't got 2 screens today. Yeah, so we have maybe around, again, between 8 and 10 minutes for each person to share, 7.5 to 10 minutes to share, and we'll be in faith sharing groups for half an hour. Anne, are you doing that?
Yeah. Do you want me to stop recording and do that now?
Hang on, I'll just put the questions up again, and again I'll copy the questions into the chat. So again, the questions, where and how were you conscious of the presence or action of God in your journey this week? Where did you notice any reluctance, resistance, avoidance? And what movements or changes are you carrying into the next part of your journey? So I'm going to stop sharing. Now I see people are frantically writing them down, so maybe I'll give it a minute. But I will copy them and put them into the chat so that you can see them. If you want to stop recording now, Anne. We thank you for your journey with us this last week, with Julian as our guide. As we've continued to walk even when it seemed difficult. We ask you to continue to walk with us, to encourage us and strengthen us as we grow into deeper intimacy with you as a result of this pilgrimage we are on. And we ask this in the name of Jesus. Amen. So just to share the presentation again, share screen, hang on a wee minute. I want to share this one. So this is where we'd got to, and I forgot to say all that bit about the prayers. So just to remind you, if you want some help with the prayer, if you want to sit back and listen, there's some, I'll be posting them on my blog site, which is sunflowerseedspirituality.com, or if you're into podcasts, I'm also putting them on a podcast channel. I suddenly now doing this journey understand why I tinkered with podcasts earlier in the year. So the prayer is going on there every day as well. And you can find it on Spotify or Google or Apple or various other platforms. And that's the channel. So they're there, not compulsory, but if you like to sit back and listen and have a guided prayer, that's there as well. So next week we're carrying on. And next week we'll be looking at days 15 to 21 of the 40-day journey. So again, taking a day at a time, and it's not homework as such. You're not getting detention if you haven't managed to do them all. As I said, I managed to record them, but I certainly didn't pray with all of them this last week. So wherever you are, at whatever point in the journey you're at next week, please do join us again, and this will be our focuses these days. Okay, so I hope to see you all next week, and thank you for being here today and for sharing so generously.